We go to decisions.
What?
Washington.
Suck again!
Yesterday, the Supreme Court made a number of rulings, including upholding the 14th Amendment, i.e. birthright citizenship,
What?
and saying no to dudes that like to vote pretty
Excuse me, it's ma'am.
in women's sports.
No!
I'm Jazz Borganzo on this, so let me get this straight. It's okay for an illegal to break into our country, drop a kid, and call it American,
See, now that's some bullshit.
but at least the mentally ill can't play in women's sports.
What the fuck?
Yeah, seems fair.
Hell no!
And it's what's next. What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages? I am your humble host, Jazz Borganzo. This is What's Next, another episode, daily dose, if you will. Hope you guys are feeling good today on this Wednesday. Well, if you haven't heard, the Supreme Court was a little busy yesterday. They were making a number of rulings, including two major ones. One, birthright citizenship, i.e. the 14th Amendment, upholding it. And two, saying no to dudes that like to vote pretty in women's sports. Wow. The second one I like. The first one, well, not so much. We go to this, coming out of Breitbart. Scotus affirms birthright citizenship, i.e. the 14th Amendment, rejects Trump's executive order. And of course, Amy Coney Barrett, she was one of the guilty ones. The U.S. Supreme Court voted 5-4 on Tuesday to reject President Trump's reform on the nation's birthright citizenship policy, which now grants a huge prize of citizenship to nearly all infants born in the U.S., even if their parents are illegal migrants, temporary visitors, or terrorists. Yeah, I added the last one in. The long 194-page Trump versus Barber decision, Trump's order violates the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. The decision was a 6-3 against Trump, but Justice Brett Kavanaugh, the one that they tried to kill a number of years ago, argued that Trump and other politicians can change the rule via legislation. Quote, citizenship then and now, Chief Justice Roberts, of course he voted for the majority because that's what he does, was the right to have rights, to freely participate in our political community. The framers of the Constitution extended the 14th Amendment to promise to every free-born person in the land. We keep that promise today. The right applies for foreign parents who sneak across the U.S. borders from Canada and Mexico, or who enter as temporary workers, tourists, Roberts insisted. Wow. The decision forces Trump and pro-American politicians to step up the border controls to exclude more migrants seeking to snatch citizenship slices away from Americans. Democrats and business groups, however, will resist such controls because they favor migration. Alternatively, pro-American politicians and voters can try to the nearly impossible task of amending the Constitution via votes in a 2/3 majority of the state legislatures. Yeah, that's not going to happen. In January 25, Trump rejected the claim that nearly all births in U.S. soil count for citizenship. Quote, the privilege of the U.S. citizenship does not automatically extend to persons born in the U.S. When the person's mother is unlawfully present in the U.S. and the father was not a U.S. citizen, or lawful permanent of the resident at the time of said person's birth. When the person's mother, present in the United States at the time of said person's birth, was lawful but temporary, such as not limited to visiting the U.S. under auspicious or the visa waiver program, or visiting on a student, work, or tourist visa, and that the father was not a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident of the time of said person's birth. Basically meaning that if you are legal into this country, whether you are the mother or the father, you have no claims to the 14th Amendment. The older practice makes sense in the 1800s when the U.S. was far more isolated from geography and competing foreign nations and cultures. Those barriers have largely been eliminated by aircraft and mass electronic media. But the continuation of the loose policy has been used by many foreigners to grab slices of American citizenship for their children and eventually for themselves via naturalization or parents of a citizen by entering the country before childbirth, either via temporary work or tourist visas or by illegal entry. Millions of infants with no parental connection to the U.S. have gained citizenship via this route, much to the advantage of the Democratic Party because, of course, they live off that illegal foreign vote. Various business interests, as well as foreign governments, such as those of China and India. Each such arrival has taken political power and civic clout from ordinary Americans, especially those Americans living in coastal cities along the Texas border. Those births have helped shift political and cultural power leftward and towards the direct rejection of Americans' free-speaking, independent culture. For example, the wonderful mayor of New York, Zoltar Mondani, election victory in a migrant-crowded New York is difficult to imagine without the loose policy of birthright citizenship. Amen and amen to that, because those are facts. So we go from that to this. Supreme Court rejects dudes who like to feel pretty in sports. The Supreme Court yesterday also totally rejected the claim that U.S. government must force young girls to accept boys into their sports teams in a 6-3 decision. Should have been an easy 9-0, but of course, leave it to the knuckleheads to vote for the, transmentalism. Anyway, the term sex in Title IX and Javits Amendment and the Title IX regulations cannot be plausible to be interpreted to refer to anything other than biological sex, per the Supreme Court. Decision is a huge blow to elite-backed transmentalism activists who said the idea of self-selected gender supersedes the role of biological sex in U.S. law and culture. No, it doesn't. The court's decision supports Americans' rights to set their evolved norms and civic rules for helping the two sexes to manage their competing and cooperative and complementary purposes. The judges decided to existing law does not mandate acceptance of transmentalism. They did not say that the local jurisdictions must bar transmental players, ensuring continued debate over the issue. Of course, basically saying, yeah, we're going to leave it up to the individual entity or the state. Oh, almost couldn't get that out. Or the state to make the decision. Well, my thoughts. Busy day for Scotus. So when it comes to birthright censorship, i.e. the 14th Amendment, what the founders had envisioned back then, of course, it was a different situation in the 1800s versus now. You talk about population. You talk about political media. You're talking about, the ability to fly over from different countries to come into it or cross over the border, i.e. Canada or Mexico. The 14th Amendment has been abused because basically it's saying, well, if, Huang and his wife decide to cross the border in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, and drop a kid right over the Texas border, automatically the kid becomes an American with all the rights and benefits that you and I sadly take for granted every single day. But we've seen over the last 4 decades, since President Reagan signed the amnesty bill into law in November of 86, I think it was, or 87. At the time, there was about roughly 3.5 million illegals at the time of count. Now we're looking between 50 and 75 million illegals in this country. And of course, they're kids. Most of the times, a lot of them are staying in the shadows. They're working under the tax laws. But yet, let's grant them everything that you and I have. Sure, break over, sure, cross the border. Sure, fly over in a plane, let your visa run out, and then disappear into the wilderness with no one, to hold accountable. Sure, why not? So Trump said, hey, if you're illegal, you extend your visa. You break these laws, you should have zero rights, especially if you drop a kid in America, you should have zero rights no matter if your kid is born on American soil. That's all he said. If you're illegal or you extend your visa, it expires and you decide to just stay here instead of going back to your own home, we can't have none of that. No. Justice Roberts said, well, it goes across the board for everybody. It doesn't matter if you are illegal, if your visa expires. It doesn't matter what the hell it is. Your kid is being born in America. It is an American citizenship, and we don't give a damn. Basically means that Trump has to increase border security. It means all other legal means under the president's executive decision and or through executive order and or through legislature, because we all know that there is not going to be an amendment to the 14th. There's not going to be an amendment per the legislative process, per the Congress as it's currently built right now, that's going to make any headway in regarding to getting rid of the 14th Amendment. So that's extremely disappointing for American citizens like you and me, who are basically saying, hey, guess what? Certain jobs, certain entities, like from India, from China, are basically taking our jobs away, because you're allowing this to happen. Now, when it comes to dudes who like to feel pretty, this was an easy one. This was an easy layup, an easy slam dunk. And of course, the Supreme Court, not to say they blew it, but in a 6-3 decision, should have been a 9-0. But leave it up to, your three liberals, Kagan, Sotomayor, and let's see, what is her name? The justice who doesn't know what a woman is. Anyway, of course, she would side with the transmentals. Anyway, but At least they got that right. So now it still falls upon a state. It still falls upon a district to basically make their own rules, not make their own rules, but to decide wisely to say, hey, guess what? Johnny, who calls himself Jamie, who still has, ball sacks, can actually play on a girls' team and give them the advantage over an all-girls team, because he decided to wake up and feel pretty. At least they got something right. And with that being said, I'm Jazz Berganzo. This is What's Next. Want to see more like this? Please leave a comment below. Like it, share it, subscribe to it, hit that notification bell so you guys never miss a thing. Continue spreading the word about the show. Appreciate you guys watching as always, and we'll see you next time. Peace.